because I knew it was time. Like I know that I've made all the positive changes, and I'm still working through it, and I always will be my whole life. This is my whole life, right? I'll continue down this road to work on things, but I do know that you can continue to thrive and have a solid foundation in life.
The MMFC acknowledges that it carries out its work on the unceded territory of the Wolastoqiyik, Mi'kmaq, and Peskotomuhkati peoples. We pay respect to the elders, past and present, and descendants of this land. We honor the knowledge keepers and seek their guidance as we strive to develop closer relationships with the Indigenous people in New Brunswick. Welcome to In Conversation, a podcast produced and hosted by the Muriel McQueen Fergusson Centre for Family Violence Research at the University of New Brunswick. Through this podcast, we hope to bring you insightful discussions with researchers, advocates, policymakers, and community members who are working to address the complex issues surrounding family and gender-based violence. The MMFC is a research centre dedicated to advancing knowledge, fostering dialogue, and creating change through community-based participatory research. We provide an Atlantic Canadian perspective on research in the field of family violence and actively seek the participation of researchers from across the country and around the world. My name is Dr. Stefanie Hunt-Kennedy, and I'm the director of the MMFC. Today's episode features our friends from Liberty Lane, a charitable organization based in Fredericton, New Brunswick that offers residential and domestic violence outreach programs. Today we're joined by Alyson Pizzey, the Executive Director of Liberty Lane, and Melissa Giles, Marketing, Fundraising, and Donation Coordinator. Welcome, Alyson and Melissa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So to start, why don't you give us like a brief introduction to yourself and your roles at Liberty Lane?
Okay, I'll go first. So my name is Alyson Pizzey. I'm the Executive Director at Liberty Lane. I just had my 7th anniversary actually on the 11th of February, so I've been there 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Amazing. Yeah, it's just gone so quickly, right?
My name is Melissa. I am the Marketing, Fundraising, and Donations Coordinator. I actually just started in July. So I have a newer role, and I am thrilled to be with the team.
You know, working for an organization like Liberty Lane that does really important but like tough work, I think it takes a particular kind of person to be drawn to this line of work. Can you share like what led you to these positions?
Yes, I can. So for myself, I'm a survivor of intimate partner violence myself. From the age of about 14 through to 21. So in most of my sort of formative years, you know. And I never really spoke about it with anybody. My family didn't know, my friends didn't know. And I kind of, took that on just by myself. Always felt it was my fault. I was the one who was the problem. And I think it was over the years as I had children, starting to kind of reflect on that. Mm-hmm. And then back in 2019, end of 2018 actually, I saw the advertisement for Executive Director for Liberty Lane, and just reading, the scope of the job, reading about the organisation itself, it really resonated. Mm-hmm. And I kind of wondered about, if I had sought help at that time, what it would have looked like. Was there help at that time when I needed it? So I was really quite intrigued about what they did and how they did it, and so I applied. And to my shock, I got it.
Yeah, amazing. Melissa, what about you?
Well, for myself, I'm actually a survivor as well. And for me, actually, Liberty Lane is the reason that I'm here, I feel like, today. They supported me through so much, so myself and my son. So it's been a great journey, and I'm so grateful to Alyson knows, someone right here, and a colleague of mine. So this organization means the world to me. So when this position came available, I knew I took the jump, and I don't regret it. It's by far my why, and it's been just amazing ever since I landed there. So
that's incredible. And I think, like, Alyson, to your point about, you know, the shame that is often internalized for survivors of intimate partner violence and family violence can be so silencing. But one of the most effective ways to kind of deal with that shame is to help, right? Is to become a helper yourself, to kind of pay back, right?
Most definitely.
Yeah. And it sounds like both of you guys are doing that.
Yeah.
I think many survivors of domestic and intimate partner violence work within the field.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to get to that point to feel strong enough to do that. You really need to have looked at your own journey, your healing journey, and feel that you're in a position now to be able to do that, because it's a very tough role to work within, the sector to work within. You see so many people who are in desperate need. And their stories can be so impactful on you that we see a lot of people within the sector, you know, experiencing things like vicarious trauma, empathic strain, compassion fatigue. This is very difficult to, you know, to almost stand alongside somebody, listen to their stories, you know, try and follow that journey through with them.
I think we find that even with the center, like the folks who are drawn to the research, you know, often comes from a personal commitment as well as like an intellectual commitment, you know. So I want to get back to this, you know, what you've said about the kind of effective toll that this has on people working with Liberty Lane. But first, just for our listeners, could you describe the difference? Because Liberty Lane is a second stage transition house, and there's also first stage, right?
Yeah.
So can you explain for our listeners the difference between those two things?
Yes, of course. The first stage transition houses, they're usually for emergency situations. So, you know, somebody is in a situation of, you know, danger at that moment, and they really need to be able to get out and find safety. So the transition houses themselves are usually able to take people at the moment's notice and take them in, you know, as I say, immediately. And usually the stay there is for about 30 days or more. During that time, they're provided those emergency services and support. We do have 2 transition houses here in Fredericton, so we have Women in Transition and also Gignu. So Liberty Lane is more second stage housing. So we tend to come on a little later. We have 10 apartments at our offices there, and we can take 10 families. We have 2 3-bedroom units, 4 2-bedroom units, and 4 individual units. And people can stay with us for about 12 to 18 months or even longer. And that during that time, they have access and one-to-one with one of our domestic violence caseworkers there. They may attend various groups, and they get different kinds of support then with regards to whether it's needing to look at, you know, setting up new bank accounts or interacting with social assistance or any other government departments, with CPS, with the justice and legal system, or other community resources. It could be counselling, it could be access to mental health, or even physical health services. So we help them to then navigate all those different things as well.
What are, in your kind of professional experience and knowledge, what are some of the biggest like misconceptions about intimate partner violence, and specifically like getting out of intimate partner violence, seeking out formal or informal support?
Yeah, that's that's huge. So, I mean, I think we always tend to view intimate partner violence and you know, think things are changing a little, but it was always a case of, well, you've made your bed, you lie in it. You know, you shouldn't talk about things that are happening inside the home, outside of the home. You know, those kinds of things. It's always been traditionally that. I think we're looking at it very differently, but still it's being seen as a women's issue. That, the responsibility is on women to protect themselves, on keeping themselves safe, with very little accountability for thinking about, well, why should women have to do that? Why are we not looking at, well, why is this violence happening in the first place? What's going on with abusers in that they feel they can perpetrate this abuse, right? So what's keeping that going? So we want to try and maybe flip that narrative a little there. But as to the challenges in leaving those relationships, there are so many. If you just think about the financial area, very often women are paid less. So there's that that gender pay gap there. That's if they're working at all. They may be, sort of staying home with the children, taking care of the home. They may not be allowed to work. So very often they're reliant on that wage from their partner to be able to maintain housing, pay the bills, ensure that themselves and the rest of the family are fed and clothed. So when you're trying to think about leaving that situation, there's a huge thing then to think about those finances. Where am I going to go? Do I have family support? Do I have the support of friends? If I do have that, does he know where those family and friends are? Will he threaten to harm them as well? So if I'm not feeling safe there, is there room in a transition house? Will they accept my pets if I take my pets with me? Will they accept my older children? How do I get there? How long can I stay? What happens after that? So there's that financial aspect, and thinking about well, where is it safe for me to live? Can I afford housing? And we know about the housing crisis at the moment. Can I find housing anywhere for myself and my children? There's a lot of things going on there. Also considering, the fear of leaving. It's the most dangerous time for a woman is when she is actually leaving. So the risk of abuse increases and the risk of homicide increases at that time. So you have that going on. And also your mental health will have been impacted during that time. There's a lot of trauma there. When you've been told for many, many years that maybe you're not good enough, you're not a good mom, you can't do anything, you start to believe that narrative. So you're walking out of a situation where, yes, you may feel it's dangerous and it's scary, into a situation, well, I'm not good yet, I can't do this, I can't do that, I don't have the finances, I don't have anywhere to live. What's going to be the impact on my children? They still love their dad, they still want that contact with their dad. Am I now going to be dragged through courts with family courts, and how long is that going to take? So, and those are just a couple, of the factors. There's so much more intertwined into that, but those are just a couple of the reasons why, people feel compelled. Well, I have to stay.
And if I remember correctly, it's quite a small percentage of women who actually seek out those formal services, right? As opposed to like informal, being like going to family or friends, right? And as you say, there's so much risk in leaving. Can you tell us like a little bit about the demographic of women that come to Liberty Lane? Like, are there trends in terms of, age, or whether they, the age of their children?
In reality, anybody can become a victim of domestic or intimate partner violence. I think we seem to think that it maybe applies to people who are maybe on the lower end of the financial spectrum or educational spectrum. And that's not the case. It can happen to anyone. And very often we see, males in really positions of power and authority who can be extremely abusive. So it can happen to anyone. So what was the next part of the question?
Well, I'm just wondering, like the women who seek out a transition house. Maybe another way to phrase this is like, do you think that do they tend to be women who don't have that kind of informal care network of family and friends?
Sometimes. And sometimes they don't want to involve family and friends in that because of the dangers.
Because of the risk, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So it really just depends on that person's personal circumstances. For ourselves within second stage, because we're deemed to be NB housing units, then anybody who actually accesses an apartment with ourselves has to be on the NB housing list, so they have to be below a certain threshold of income.
Right.
Because it's determined that if you have an income higher than that, then you should be able to manage with market rent.
Right.
Well, we know that's not the case. But yeah, that's how it is for second stage housing.
Yeah, so there's lots of like systemic kind of issues associated with the barriers, right, to leaving. You mentioned the kind of financial barriers that women face in leaving, and Liberty Lane provides both personal or seeks to provide both personal and economic independence. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that looks like? What kind of services or education or support do women get on the economic side of things?
So we have been providing sort of budgeting information within our housing, but also we're trying to help women with, and it's difficult to do this because it can take a long time for somebody to feel that they're in a place where they can maybe look at doing additional education or thinking about taking a job. It takes a long time to find that, to build your confidence, to build your self-esteem, to actually heal from some of the trauma that's going on. Often children are impacted significantly as well.
Right.
So when you're trying to maybe, think about, okay, maybe I can take on a little part-time job and, start going there. It may be the case that the children have a lot of mental health or physical issues that mean that they have to be picked up from school early, or they're not able to go to school, or they have a lot of appointments with various service providers. Yeah. So when you've got a lot of those things going on as well, and you've got your own appointments to attend for your healing and things, it makes it very difficult to actually get a job or maintain a job. So just trying to, as I say, that first part of the journey, it can be about healing and learning to believe in yourself again, developing that self-esteem, that confidence, being able to build those resumes, maybe looking at some volunteer work first of all, rather than thinking about anything else, to see whether you can ease yourself slowly into things. So those are some of the things that we kind of try to do with people, setting up your own bank accounts. Right. I'm trying to think of what the other things.
I would say most of those are about it. It takes quite some time to get yourself settled, to be ready to start that journey. It's quite a bit.
Yeah, to feel safe before you actually start putting another step forward, right?
Yeah.
Just feeling that your feet are firmly planted on the ground in one space. Yeah. To take that breath.
Yeah. That takes a lot.
And then take those steps. Yeah. So.
And what about the violence outreach programs that you offer?
Yes, so as well as the second stage housing program that we've got, we do have an outreach program. So they actually our outreach team actually works with any gender within the community, and we've got quite a large area that we cover. We cover everything from, I think, Gagetown through to Armocto, Stanley, Macadam, Tracy, and all the way back around. So we've got a large demographic area, including the base Gagetown. So our team, as I say, we work with any gender within the community, providing the same services as we do for our second stage, but of course we're not able to provide the housing for
So what does that look like?
So that can actually be emotional support, so helping them to look at the things like the dynamics of domestic violence, looking at their basic needs, seeing whether we can assist with some of those basic needs as well. Danger assessments. Safety planning is huge. So helping them to kind of identify what those risk factors are and how they could respond accordingly and increase their safety. And that's whether they're still in that relationship or whether they've left that relationship.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Like, are these women currently in a situation of IPV? and then they're seeking the program, they're seeking that outreach program?
They could be still within the relationship or have left the relationship. We never tell women that they have to leave. We'll just give them the information for everything, make sure that they're aware, that they understand that yes, what they're experiencing is intimate partner violence. So we'll give them lots of information about that. And we'll provide them with resources so that they can, look at those resources and see whether they're appropriate for them. But also letting them know that we're not telling them they have to leave. They know best the risks. And we may not know all those risks. So, saying that, well, you have to leave, when we really don't know, it can make things more dangerous for them. So they understand the risks within the home and whether they're able to manage that, or whether it's not safe for them to remain there any longer.
I'm happy to give my experience, and I don't know.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So I went through the outreach program myself.
Okay.
I can say personally what they did for me. For me, it was going over a lot of information, but realizing, and actually for me, it does take quite often. What you'll see is an individual may come once and then years later realize that they need to return. So I had my first trip in 2014 to realize I need to secure information. And then I went back again in 2018 when I was ready to learn more and to kind of work one-on-one. And exactly as Alyson said, I was never told that I need to leave or anything. They're there to support you during the journey and provide information. So honestly, it was going over, a lot of information around power control wheel, this is kind of what's happening in the experience.
Right.
Learning tools around how to self-regulate around what's happening in the home, I did a lot of safety planning and how to ensure I was safe and my son was safe. So a lot of stuff like that. So I spent a lot of time around preparing because I did exit. I chose to exit my relationship, but and also attending appointments with me. Yeah, being an advocate with me. At doctor's appointments, visiting with a lawyer, stuff like that. And those are types of things that, people don't think that you actually need, but you absolutely do in a situation like that, because you are very heightened. And having someone there that understands what's going on to help kind of verbalize what's happening, secure the information, and help walk you through it. Those are the types of things that the amazing team does through the outreach program.
That's incredible. I'm wondering also, for people listening, what kind of protections, what kind of measures are put in place to protect, in this case, a woman from disclosing or being found out that she's doing this outreach program? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so we're very cautious that we don't. So when people come through to ourselves, we always ask them if there's a safe number or a safe email to contact them back.
Absolutely.
Because we wouldn't want to email or a call, and have somebody else maybe pick up that message.
Yeah,
so we're always very, very cautious about that. We can meet in the community with somebody. We can meet at our office with somebody. And, if they want us to maybe visit them at the home, if they feel it's safe to do so, we can do that. But we put a lot of measures in place to make sure that everything is safe from our end, and then safety plan with them then as well to make sure that things that are safe as can be on their side as well.
Right.
Yeah.
We know, in our sector, how devastating COVID was, not only to increasing the rates of IPV, but also adding a lot of barriers to escaping IPV. I mean, we're literally told to stay at home, right? Which in a lot of cases, what is basically, a prison for women in cases of family violence and children. I'm curious to know what your experience was. And Alyson, when you said your dates, I'm thinking you started as executive director, and then a year later, COVID hit. So that would have been an interesting initiation.
It was. It really was. Oh my gosh, the time, it was almost like a powder keg. you
Yeah.
know, when in people's homes. So, you know, people who were in situations of, you know, intimate partner or domestic violence, you know, suddenly found themselves kind of shuttered 24 hours a day
Yeah.
in the home, and the perpetrator of that abuse would be there as well, right? So maybe they were working from home. You had the children at home, they couldn't go to school. So you've got everybody in one space. You can't leave the home. You can't access all of those support services that you used to access.
Yeah.
So whether it was friends or family that you would call or pop over to for coffee, you couldn't do that any longer because, you know, you couldn't take the phone call in the house, you couldn't go out to visit anyone. And so all those pressure releases that you used to be able to have to take
Right.
some of that pressure off, they weren't there any longer. Services shut down,
Yeah.
or they became remote, or people were trying to work from home and navigating that. So during that time, you know, maybe trying to contact social development or, you know, justice and public safety, all these services were so pared back that even trying to get any help was really challenging.
Yeah.
Add to that, people were maybe losing work, so the finances were more constrained.
Right. That adds so much pressure to,
Absolutely.
you know,
They were just like ticking time bombs,
Right.
really.
Right.
So we did see a huge surge in cases over the COVID period. And we did think that that surge would dip a little afterwards, and it hasn't really.
Wow.
Because I think we've gone into so many different kind of crises from then.
Yeah.
So, you know, the housing crisis that came along with COVID,
Yep.
pushing the house prices up and, you know, rental prices, and straight into a cost of living crisis
Yep.
where, you know, people can't afford their groceries or their gas or their power. So I think though a lot of those stresses are still there, and will continue to be there. But yeah, so I'm not seeing the figures come down. And it's very sad, really, because when you think, I was just kind of reflecting the other day on the Olympics, right? And just thinking about, oh yeah, we got a gold medal in so-and-so, you know, we're first in the world for this and everything. And, you know, sometimes that pride that comes with being, you know, at the top of the pile, being first, but we're also first in the rates of police-reported domestic violence incidents throughout Atlantic Canada.
Yeah.
Not really something to be proud of for such a small province, right?
Yeah.
And we've got the highest, you know, family-related murder-suicides than anywhere else in Canada. Again, not something to be proud of in such a small province. So it's really challenging. Much of our work is taken up with the intervention side. And there's so much work to do around that, trying to find the time then to put those preventative things in place. So it's almost like a friend of mine had described, you're downstream pulling people out of the river because they're drowning, and yet upstream you can see, you know, all these people coming off the bridge, landing in the water, and you can't get upstream to prevent it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a challenge in trying to balance those priorities, and we've got so much work to do.
Okay, I promised I would return to your staff, because you just described so powerfully the difficulties, well, the reality, first of all, of IPV in our province. And as you say, like, we're the top in so many of these things that are not good things to be first in, right? And both the kind of personal challenges that come with leaving, but also like how much of this is structural, you know, in terms of like poverty and like under-resourced services, etc. And you have this place, Liberty Lane, that employs, I can only imagine, really amazing people. And I know that you guys have a number of jobs that maybe people wouldn't think would be employed at a second stage at Transition House. So could you maybe talk a little bit about your staff and who all works at Liberty Lane?
Yeah, we have an amazing staff, and I remember when I started there, as I say, 7 years ago, including myself, it was 4 people, and we're now 11.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a significant period of growth, and I mean, it's always, I mean, it's that sort of dichotomy, right? When you're a business, growing is wonderful, right? You know, having the work and growing, and yeah, it's what all business aspire to, right? But for ourselves, it's the other way around. We really don't want to be growing. That growth is a sign of, really some major systemic issues.
Yeah.
And really, we'd like to be able to do ourselves out of a job, right?
Yeah.
That would be the ideal for ourselves. But yeah, we have an incredible team there. Some of our team members have been there for 19 years or close on. And then we have some newer staff that just came through this year. 3 new staff started, including Melissa. Yes, it's a really challenging environment. And it's challenging for ourselves, almost, seeing some of those systemic breakdowns that almost seem to have further detrimental impact on victims, and that can be very hard for us to take in as well, so whilst we're advocating and we're trying to work from things from our own side, seeing some of these systemic issues that are not there supporting and in many cases are creating more harm, can be really difficult. I think we're trying to look more at our collective care as an organisation, and that's been in the works now for I think over a year, so we're looking more at being able to provide things like debriefings, staff counselling, personal days for mental health and well-being, just trying to build a more foundational level of collective care where we look after each other as well, because it is really hard work. So that's all in the process at the moment. So again, we've still got a lot of work to do on that, but
I can only imagine there's a lot of a need for a kind of a therapeutic care, but also like probably some levity. Like how do you guys, you're sitting across the table from me, both smiling, you do really heavy work. Like how does Liberty Lane find joy in the midst of such heavy work?
Melissa, you're going to tell them about last week. Yes.
I guess like to find joy for us, a big part is just what can we do to just uplift our organization a little bit. Last week, a big goal of mine is to find like some strategic community partners that want to come together and do something. And we had the pleasure of bringing in Lucinda Richard Photography. So she's a photographer, and we collaborated with the Maine Institute downtown. And they came in, and what they did, it was amazing. They did photo shoots for second stage housing. So we had 15-minute sessions. We were able to give gift cards to the moms and children that were getting photos done. And it was just such an amazing afternoon to watch these kids smiling and laughing, and the moms were just so happy. I honestly left crying, like, from the day. And just the whole team. Like, it just, those moments, like, seeing that happen, it's just something you'd never imagine.
Melissa was telling me that she'd been able to give families gift cards to buy some new clothes. To look smart for their photographs, and and how proud some of the kids were displaying.
They were showing their clothes, and like honestly, they came in with balloons, like for pictures, little like stuffies. Like I mean, we're talking like baby dolls were in these pictures, and it was amazing. And like those are moments that they're so important. We captured those moments for them, and just it was amazing.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And for one of our moms, it's the first time she had any pictures of herself and her children together.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like
so when you think about those kinds of things, oh my gosh, I mean that just really uplifts, Or when I remember one of our residents from a number of years ago, when she was given the keys to her apartment, was just so overwhelmed because she'd never been allowed to set the keys to her front door before.
Wow.
like
so when you realize those kinds of impacts that you have, it's just incredible. And with the Christmas sponsorship program as well, being able to give those gifts and gift cards and take some of that financial worry away from moms to provide a Christmas for their children.
that was amazing.
Emotions
up and down.
But it can be a roller coaster during the day where you have something really awful happens, and so you're really down at the bottom, and then 5 minutes later something wonderful happens, and you peak, and so it can be a roller coaster throughout the day and throughout the week. Having something great happen on a Friday is amazing.
Right.
And I would say that we, as a team, we always celebrate birthdays together. Like, we always do little cards. Like, we're really intentional on checking in with each other, too. Like, I have to say, like, this group of women, they're phenomenal. And it just a little check-in with someone, little note on your desk. Hope you have a good day.
And nobody's there for the pay. Right, non-profit charity work does not pay.
No, we are there because we care.
Yeah,
it's our why.
Yeah. It sounds like a wonderful place to work. You know, both in what you the why, what you actually are doing, but also just the collective care.
Yeah.
And it sounds very like a very kind of feminist oriented place. Melissa, I wanted to go back to something that you said, because I think another, maybe not misunderstanding, but something that might get lost for folks is just the fact that children are also survivors of intimate partner violence, right? Like witnessing and experiencing their parents in a situation of IPV. They also have that experience, and they're also part of this story, right?
Yes,
and also the story of Liberty Lane. Like, you have families living with you.
We do.
Yeah,
we do have quite a few children, and they are just a joy to have. We do have a playroom on site, which is pretty wonderful. We have some children's programming, and the team works very hard to ensure that we do some very creative things with our kids that are there. But it is hard, because kids are very much so part of the story too.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah, and we've got 2 wonderful child and youth workers.
Yes.
And they are so joyful. They absolutely adore children.
I haven't seen anything like them.
Yeah, the activities that they do with children that are all based around, developing well-being and emotional well-being and resilience and social thinking. And I remember one activity they did one year. It was based around the planets, so it was, it was exploring planets with as emotions.
Oh, cool.
So I think one week they were doing Mars, and Mars was angry, you know? So the activities they do and the crafts that they do are kind of based around Mars. So, they come up with some incredible things. But the kids are also given, or moms, also receive a lot of parental assistance.
They
if
do.
they're sort of, they're struggling with some things going on with the children. We have, actually, there's one coming up in the next week or so, I think, Kids Club, a Moms Empowerment Program. So that's a program that we have where, moms and kids attend together, but the children go into one group, mom goes into another group. So the mom receives some education on domestic violence, what that may look like, various other topics within that, and that will align with some of the work that the children are doing downstairs. And I just remember one story that was told with the children there. So one of the activities is, it's never the kid's fault. And they start that activity kind of with, they kind of write it down. And then the next thing is they kind of, whispering it to themselves. And then they whisper it to a neighbour, and they say it a little louder, and then they start shouting it, and then they stamp their feet as they're shouting it. And one little guy at the end of that activity got really emotional and turned around and he said, so it's not me? It's not my fault? And one little girl turned around, aren't you listening? It's never the kid's fault. And it was just so emotional, that piece, and how another child was, he'd carry his little safety plan in his pocket, and he'd tap his pocket every now and again because it reassured him that it was there.
Yeah.
So that program itself is incredibly powerful.
It absolutely is.
And then we have another one that we've been doing as well for teens and young adults for healthy relationships.
That's wonderful.
So, helping people to understand, what does a healthy relationship look like, and what doesn't it look like?
Right.
Yep.
What would be some of those red flags? How are relationships portrayed in the media? Or within, the music scene? Those kinds of things,
It's not only in the home that we get these, like, really...
Absolutely. And the
hostile,
targeted age, too. Like, it's really important to learn this and absorb it.
So it's kind of, it's asking them to, to look at and reflect and what do you think about, how this is portrayed and that kind of thing, So Yeah, so those programs are really, really great when we're able to provide those.
Yeah.
Amazing. You guys are amazing. Okay, so Liberty Lane is a charity, but that does not mean that everyone should just drop off all their used stuff to you, right? So, tell our listeners, what are your biggest needs if people want to help out?
Honestly, I mean, we love our community and how everybody wants to support us. In reality, we have a very small donation room.
Yes.
And we really don't have the staff to organise and ensure that donation room is well kept. So we have a lot of things maybe that kind of arrive on our doorstep. We don't have the manpower to sort through them, and if they're not appropriate, to take them elsewhere, or to ensure everything is stocked, rotated, and those kinds of things. So, and very often the donations we may receive in, so for example, we may have 10 sweaters in a size large, but we've got somebody coming through the door who needs an extra small.
Yes.
Or needs a pair of winter boots. We've got 15 pairs of winter boots, but none of the sizes are correct, Or when thinking about the food storage area, we have lots of tins of tomatoes and tomato soup.
Yeah.
But we don't really have any fresh produce. We don't have anything that may cater to specific diets or specific cultures. So, it can be very difficult to keep on top of that donation room. Plus, just because we've got it, it doesn't mean that we've got the things that people necessarily need, right?
Yeah.
So, physical donations are great. But at the same time, they take a lot of manpower on our part to actually organise them and to keep them, manageable, which we don't have. And before I go into the other part of it, and Melissa will talk a little bit of this, but I had one lady who, she accessed the donation room a lot.
Yeah.
And say a lot of the things that we had, there was tomato soup. And she and her family kind of lived on tomato soup. And years after actually being involved with us, she would be triggered if she went to a superstore or a Sobeys. Yeah. She could not go down the aisle that had the canned soup in there. Because the moment she saw those tins of tomato soup, it took her right back to where she was.
Yeah. Right.
And that really hit me.
Yeah.
So that, yes, having the donations there is wonderful, but at the same time, it's not always the right answer.
Yeah.
So we, ideally, gift cards.
Why are gift cards so
gift cards?
Important?
Why are they so important?
Yeah.
It allows choice. It gives choice. It empowers the individual to pick what they need at the time. And also, I would like to note too, with gift cards, it does come along with sometimes we do need to provide them to an individual that may be in a situation that for safety purposes, gift cards are easy to work with.
Yeah.
It can go in a wallet, right? You have to think of that too. And if they need to secure, groceries for families, their family and stuff, a gift card sometimes much easier than, or if it's gas. The common gift cards that are always needed by us, groceries are always, gas.
Yeah.
Those are your two biggest ones. And we always think of somewhere you can get everything. Walmart, Superstore, Sobeys, downtown, accessible.
Yeah.
Those ones.
Yeah. As Melissa said, it allows that freedom of choice.
Yes, it absolutely does.
It makes a big difference going into a donation room, picking up a few tins of soup or some cereals that, maybe are not your particular type of cereal. And it can be hard on your mental health to feel that you're reliant on that. But when you have a gift card in your hand and you can walk into a store just like anyone else and purchase what you like, it's more than just being able to buy the groceries.
Right, it's like breaking down the stigma.
It is.
Right?
Yes.
And same with I think of too, when you're going shopping with a child too.
Yeah.
You can get their favorite little treat maybe. And same with back to school time. Instead of you had to pick a book bag from that's just an example I'm thinking of, but pick a book bag that is already there, or you get to go to a store and the little one gets to pick a book bag within a price range or something. Yeah. I always think of that.
Yeah,
too,
totally. Because the child is then also made to feel just a little bit more normal. Right?
Yeah.
That they, they get the same kind of pleasures and benefits as their friends.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
Yeah, less kind of isolation and
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, so gift cards for the win.
Yes. And then there's always monetary donations as well. That's another easy way to support us.
Keep our lights on and our doors open.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to.
Amazing.
We need to.
Melissa, you in your position do a lot to do with like fundraising and can you kind of walk us through a calendar year of all the events that you guys put on, maybe ending with the upcoming annual gala?
Okay, absolutely. So if we're going to end on the gala, I haven't been through a full calendar year yet. Okay. However, so if we started maybe around the fall, so we could go with Ride for Refuge. It's the first week in October. That's meant to be like a family-friendly event. Cool. You can walk or bike ride. There's a specific designated route. There's opportunity to sponsor the event, get involved. There's snacks, there's music. It's a great event. Last year we raised $25,000. Wow. It was between us and another nonprofit, Youth in Transition. And we're hoping to be a part of it again this coming year, so 2026. So that's a fun little one. Right after that, I realized very quickly that my job goes really fast into the next event.
She tumbles from one to the next.
And then right after that, we go to Christmas sponsorship. What happens is we reach out to community. People can sponsor a family. So you can connect with us and essentially shop either like a specific wish list of items. So we'll have a list of individuals that we are going to sponsor. So either an individual or a mom and so many kids. And then sponsors will tell us what their budget is and what they want to do for sponsorship. And it's kind of like being a little matchmaker. So I did that, which is pretty fun. So we do a lot of that, and that was pretty impactful. We make sure that basically Christmas happens for so many families in the city. And the moms that come in, like, it's a full Christmas. It's all their presents, all the wrapping, all the gift tags, bows, everything. So that's pretty impressive. And we're very grateful to have some wonderful businesses and individuals that reach out and do it every single year. It's their highlight. And then I will say, too, what I did notice is we received a lot of gift cards, too, which is amazing because one thing that the team said is right after Christmas, there's still things continue to happen in January. We still need groceries. We still need, so those expenses are still there. So we had a lot of people reach out to us with gift cards, and that was great too. So that was fantastic. And then we just keep going along. We do move into the gala season. So that's coming up on April 18th at the Delta. So opportunities for sponsorship by companies. You can purchase tickets. At the gala itself, it's the Jen Russell Band, and Corinne Basque will be there as well. There's amazing snackies. We're still working on options. I know, and the menu looks amazing. We'll figure it out. It'll be great. Don't worry. And there'll be a live and silent auction, which will be amazing as well. And what else do we have at the gala? I think that's everything there.
What else do we have at the gala? Oh, we've had over the years some really incredible photo booths and
it's a
really fun night.
So April 18th, and people can purchase tickets.
They can pay a table. I think the tables are at $7.50.
$7.50 for 10 people, so that'd be a full table.
Yeah.
Or individual tickets are $85.
Awesome.
And you can purchase those. We'll have up a link soon on our website and on our Facebook page.
Yeah. It's a great night out. It's really great.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
It's really fun.
And then you also have like a cookie campaign.
Right? The Smile Cook. We are selected nonprofit, I guess, for the Woodstock Road Tim Hortons. And that does happen shortly after gala. So Smile Cookie does happen there. So we will be there smiling and
Awesome.
making some smiley cookies. And that's always a great opportunity. And we're very fortunate to have that because that does bring in quite a large donation, hopefully. So yeah, we just really need the community to show up. And we're always looking for volunteers. I should say that too. Mm-hmm. When it comes to volunteers, though, it would be mostly like event-based volunteering. So that's an opportunity as well.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
There's always different ways to partner.
Decorate the cookies.
Decorate cookies. There's always different things to do with nonprofit world.
And if you don't want to decorate cookies, I'm sure somebody out there likes to eat cookies.
Eat cookies, buy cookies.
Yes, so Woodstock Road location is perfect for that.
You guys are making it pretty easy. Like, attend a beautiful gala or eat cookies.
Eat cookies right afterwards. Do both.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
That's awesome. Melissa and Alyson, you guys are both such a testament to the possibilities of, an afterlife after leaving a situation of IPV. I think a lot of times we think about these situations, in the very kind of negative lens, which, for good reason. It's a really scary situation for all the reasons that you've identified during our conversation. But you show us that there's life after this, right? And it's not just escaping and surviving, but also that you can have this really abundant life after. And I wonder if you could just speak to that, even just generally the women that you see leave these situations and again, not just survive, but really go on to have these joy-filled, meaningful lives.
I'll just speak about mine because I don't do as much work individually. But I would say that I think it's important to note that you can have a full life after this. It is the hardest thing I went through in my life. Me and my son are a testament to show we got through it.
Yeah.
We are still working through a lot of things. But I know that I've worked so hard to be where I am today. I have a lot of people in my life that continue to champion me on, and I'll just continue and move forward. I knew whenever I spoke at the gala in 2024, that's when I told my story.
Yeah.
And I knew from that moment that when I stepped off that stage, I was like, okay, you need to be with at Liberty Lane. Now's the time.
Wow.
I knew once I left that stage that I had to find my way somehow at Liberty Lane because I knew it was time. I know that I've made all the positive changes and I'm still working through it, and I always will be.
Sure.
My whole life. This is my whole life, right? I'll continue down this road to work on things, but I do know that you can continue to thrive and have a solid foundation in life. I know that. I'm doing it right now. Alyson tells me often, and so does my do my colleagues. So yeah, it's just amazing to be out the other side of it. And at the time, it didn't feel like it, but just kept going.
Yeah, and it's so scary. Right?
Yeah,
it's so
scary.
And healing takes time.
It's a journey.
I think so many people seem to think that, the healing process may only take a short time, a year or two, and they put timelines on these things. And there is no timeline.
Yeah.
It's a very individual journey. And also it's not linear, It goes up and down. So you'll have the joys and there'll be the lows.
Right.
Where you're really struggling. And what you'll find is over time, those lows get a little less and less and less. So it takes time, and it takes putting the work in to do that as well, which is always, really scary to do. But yes, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that you can come out of this and be more resilient, stronger, recognize your self-worth far more than you ever did before.
Absolutely.
And develop that belief and confidence in yourself, and realize, what, everything that was told to me was lies. It was
Yeah.
it was told to me to keep me in line, to coerce me into staying. And it's not true. So, once you've started to develop that belief and confidence in yourself, that's when you can start to grow further from that, So whether it's, going on to further education, going on and, getting those jobs that you wanted or whatever, right? Life is never perfect. It's always going to have its ups and downs, right? But it is so worth it to be there on the other side of it.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful message. We've talked a lot about the importance of community and also the responsibility that lies with our community and with our government and with these kind of more structural and formal kind of supports. I wonder, what is your message to our community? And maybe even if there's a woman listening right now that's in a situation of IPV, what would be your message to her?
There are supports available.
Yeah.
And nobody is going to tell you what you have to do. They will give you the information, let you know what your options are. And if you want to take any steps in those options, we will help you with that. There's not just Liberty Lane out there are many other services. And if you don't know where to start and you just need one simple number, call 211.
Yeah.
They're an amazing service with trained people who, and they don't need a story from you. They just need an idea of what it is that maybe you're looking for help with.
Right.
And they will give you all the resources out there that you need to actually be able to help yourself move forward.
I guess for me, I will say that you're worthy. You're worthy of it. Yeah. You're worthy. You deserve to be here.
And what about to our community? Folks listening, whether they're in positions of, quote unquote power or not, what would be your message? What's something that you want to say?
I think for me, again, it's just recognizing this is not a women's issue.
Yeah.
This is a whole society issue, and that perpetrators, men, very often need to take accountability. Not just the perpetrators of that abuse, but those who see it. So, if you've got a friend who's making, very sexist, derogatory jokes or catcalling and that behaviour should be called out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or if you're recognising that somebody's being very coercive or abusive to a female partner, to very gently call that out. You have to be very careful with that because you don't want to, increase risks to a person. But yet we shouldn't be tolerating those kinds of behaviours.
We all have a responsibility.
Right?
We absolutely do.
And we should be teaching our children much younger
100%.
what a healthy relationship looks like
and
what we shouldn't be doing or saying to each other or thinking of each other or speaking to, those kinds of things. So it really needs to start early with our children. With ourselves as parents modelling good behaviour to them, so that they understand then, what that actually looks like.
And
right?
teachers too, right? I feel like for so long the message was, so much focus was put on teaching girls to be safe instead of teaching boys to be responsible, right? And shifting that to the focus on, as you were saying, what is inappropriate and what is harmful, as opposed to just strategizing with girls how to keep them safe.
Yeah.
That's important as well. But as you say, it's bigger than just girls and women. It's a societal issue.
Yes.
Melissa and Alyson, this has been so wonderful to hear about the amazing work at Liberty Lane. I swear that you and all of your staff bear wings. You are just really incredible and such an inspiration. And just listening to you, I feel, called to a kind of accountability and responsibility myself. And you've given us so many opportunities to help out. I think sometimes people are like, but what do I do, right? And so I hope folks listening will buy tickets April 18th to the gala and eat cookies.
Yes, please.
And then
Woodstock Road cookies.
on Woodstock Road. And then later they can ride or walk and,
Yes, they can.
and then prepare for Christmas. So we've got lots of things going on. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to be in conversation with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.